Hi everybody, welcome to another Intro to Kubernetes series. So for today's session, we will be discussing more on Ingress and certificate. So to recap the previous session, right? So we actually talked about how we actually provided are we running anything on Kubernetes. So generally, when you want to run any services on Kubernetes, what you need to do is basically you need to create a namespace. Right, so inside this namespace, we are going to create a pod. This pod will be assigned with a pod IP, right? And the pod IP will be accessible within the cluster, right? Now, in order for this pod to be available to external users, the first step that we need to do is basically we need to create a service. This service will be assigned a cluster IP, and this cluster IP in turns need to be attached to either a load balancer or Ingress controller. Load balancer is where you actually assign the services to external IP address, right? So for the Ingress controller, is also assigned to external IP address, but generally it's a pre-assigned already. So generally you will have some IP address that is already assigned to the Ingress controller. So this will be used to attach with the services that is mainly HTTP and HTTPS. Right, so for today's session, we'll be focusing a lot more on the HTTPS, right? Because HTTPS is more secure and at the same time, the setups will be slightly more complex as well. Right, now, in order for us to actually run this, what we need to do is we need to make sure we have our certificate ready, right? And the certificate key ready as well. Right, the creation of the certificate and the certificate key will be out of the scope of today's tutorial. Generally, you can also buy a cert that assign your domain to the cert from some external vendor. In that sense, when you do that, you generally get a CA root as well, or we call it root CA. Right, root CA is basically the main certificate that is used to actually sign your key. So usually this need to be imported to your web browser. Right, but if you buy, of course, from the more well-known CA, generally all this is already imported, so you just need the certificate and the certificate key. Right, now beyond this, we also need to make sure that we have a domain, we have the DNS attached. So for our case, right, we have this rpi01.transcend.local, right? That will be pointing to our Ingress controller. Okay, let's look at it. Right, so first what I'll do is I'll get my Ingress controller, get svc minus n cube system. Right, Ingress controller will be in the main system itself. Yeah, alright. Right, you can see that our Ingress controller is actually this traffic. Right, they actually assigned with the external IP of 192.168.17.101. So for any host name that we want to use, we need to make sure that it's point to this external IP. So let's check that. Right, ping yellow. Okay, so today I'm going to use yellow.rpi01.transcend.local. Right, and blue .rpi. Yeah, so we have two of these ready. Now the next part is basically we also have our certificate ready. Right, so let me make this slightly smaller because we won't need this external one as much. Right, and I'm going to close these nodes because I don't think we'll need this anymore. Right, so I'll close without saving. Right, now to see the cert, we can actually use our OpenSSL command. OpenSSL 509 text minus in certs rpi.pem. Right, so as you can see here, my DNS is actually pointing to the star.rpi.transcend.local. Right, so the content of the cert will be something like this. the content of the key will be something like this. Okay, so this is a key. Now, unfortunately, the cert and the key, it is actually not very Kubernetes friendly, because Kubernetes actually prefer the cert and the key to be in a base 64 format, right? Now, in order for us to get a 64 encoded, base 64 encoded, what we can do is we can cat it. So we can actually ask them to do base 64 encoding, and I'll need the whole thing, right, the result to be in one single line. So we need to do this as well. Now, as you can see here, this is actually the whole cert, right? So we are going to use this key later, right? Another one that we need to do is we need to do the key as well. Yep, so far so good. So I think we are more or less ready. Now, I actually create a template. I will do some sub-template to actually create a template to make our whole tutorial so much simpler. I'll put the content of the template later on in the description of the video as well. Right. So I have already copy pasted the cert here and the key to the tls.key part. Right. So when you have your own cert and key, please make sure you replace your tls cert and tls key accordingly. Right. So because we are going to create it in multiple namespace later, that's why I'm actually creating I pre-named our cert to be called tls ingress *rpi01, right? The namespace is basically according to the namespace. Now, how to do this? How to use this? So if I want to create, let's say, a cert for the yellow namespace, what I need to do is basically I'll need to do sed search for namespace, right? So I'll do a yellow cert.template, right? So when I do this, you'll see that the namespace, right, will be replaced with yellow. So we are going to create a yellow cert just like this .yaml, right? At the same time, I also have my HTTP template. So this is basically, right, HTTP template. Okay, the HTTP template is basically what we want to do generally when we provide the services. So as you can see, initially I'll be creating the namespace. On top of the namespace, I'm creating a pod, right? So the only things new here is basically now I'm actually using my own image container, which is nginx. So this nginx, the only thing that will do is basically it'll actually provide a host name. At the same time, I change the background color of the web services to the color of the namespace as well, right? Then on top of that, I'm going to create a services, right, on the port 80. Then as you can see here, I'm actually creating an ingress also, right? So we need to actually name it with the entry point of web secure because we want to use HTTPS, right? At the same time, you can see that I'm going to use the secret that we already created. Yeah. So let's see, sed as the same thing, namespace, yellow. Okay, let's see what it does first to make sure I don't do any mistake here. Oops. Right, HTTP template. Right, so as you can see, they are just replacing all the namespace. Once we are happy, I can redirect it to a file. So I'll call it yellow http.yaml, right? So let's run this kubectl apply -f yellow http, right? Yeah, get all -n yellow, right? As you can see here, we have a pod running, right? We have the services running, right? So we can actually get ingress as well, right? Then you can see that ingress is actually pointing to yellow.rpi.torrentset.com. So let me send my web browser to the other side. I don't need the text mode anymore, so I'll remove this. So now I can use the yellow. Right, as you can see here, this is not exactly what we want, right? So this is still yellow, right? The only reason is basically because even though I have the services, I have the ingress, I haven't imported the cert in yet. So let's do this. Apply -f yellow cert. Right, once I do this, did I do anything wrong here? Let me start a new incognito session. It is still unsecured. Namespace is correct, tls is correct. This seems to be correct. Yeah, I really hate this style tutorial. Okay, now as you can see, our connection is already secured. You can look at the certificate here. Right, so on the certificate, let me make it full screen. Right, the issuer is like that. Public key information. Right. So for the subject alternative name, you see that this is actually we are actually using the right cert already. Right. So yeah, so in this tutorial, sometimes we might definitely, it's not might, we will definitely need to do a lot of this closing browser and all that so that the cache will be removed. Right. So I'm going to create another one. So instead of just one yellow template, I'm going to create a blue as well. Blue httpYaml. Apply blue httpYaml. Alright, we are going to create the cert as well. Blue and blue cert. Okay, so if I open up another tab, I'll do https blue.rpi.0. Right, so now we have the port blue and the port yellow. Yeah, sounds good, and both of them are actually secured. Yeah, so sometimes of course it might feels a little bit like redundant, right, since we are always pointing to the star.rpi.transcend.local anyway, right? So why do you even bother to actually use this two different certs? By right it should be single cert, right? So, and this is anyway a default cert. So let's try to do this. What I'm going to do is here, now I'm going to delete the cert, right? Okay, get cert. Sorry, it's called secret, not cert. And blue, right? So I'm going to delete secret, paste, I'm going to get the yellow one as well. Right. So once this is done, technically the cert is removed. So if I were to actually refresh this again, let's try to do new incognito window. Close this. https yellow.rpi. Oops. Okay, they are stubborn, so let's close the whole thing. And I'm opening up a new browser. Right, as you can see now, we actually have the cert remove. Once the cert remove, we'll get this HTTPS, and the yellow should encounter the same as well. So let's do this for yellow. Okay, so that's part of it. So now, so how do we actually create a default cert that applies to all the namespace, right? So in order to do that, instead of putting all the cert inside each of the namespace, what we can do is we can actually put the cert inside the kube system, right? Then on the top of kube system, right, what we'll do is we'll set it as a default cert for the whole traffic system. Right, so to do this, we'll create a default cert. So I'm going to create is my cert. Okay, this is cert template. Okay, now this need to be belongs to kube system, because that is where our traffic is residing. Right, so I call it default cert. Okay, let me close this. Right. Okay, let's confirm that service minus n kube system. Right, you can see the traffic is actually inside the kube system, so we are going to apply this minus f. Okay, get secret minus n kube system. Make sure we don't have. Oh, we already have, so I'm going to replace it anyway. K apply minus f default cert. Alright, to make sure that is what we have now. Right, on top of this, what we'll do is basically we need to actually tell the traffic to use this as the cert, the default cert. Right, so I have this YAML file that actually do exactly that. Right, so what we need to do is we create the TLS store, and we are going to ask this TLS, we are going to dump this secret inside the default TLS. Right, so K apply minus F K apply minus F traffic cert. Okay, once that is done, let me dump a new incognito window again. Right, so we can have HTTPS yellow. Right, yeah, we are back in the secure mode. And blue. Yeah, so that looks good. Okay, so what I'll do is now I'm going to delete the yellow namespace. Yeah, Q delete yellow namespace. Okay, so the next part that I want to do is basically I want to actually make use of the Kubernetes slightly better. So generally what we do in Kubernetes is you want to actually set up multiple pods, and you can actually use the services, right? A single services to actually point to these multiple pods. So how do we do that? Right, I'm going to do that after this is deleted. So I'm going to move the yellow pod, right, into the blue pod, into the blue namespace later on. So everything will be residing there, and you'll see the cool things that happen then, the magic so-called of Kubernetes, right? Okay, you don't have it anymore, so let's go to the our blue namespace, blue HTTP. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll be copying this whole bunch. apiVersion v1 kind port metadata name port yellow namespace blue, the labels. Okay, so the only things that I'll change here is basically the label. So instead of calling it port yellow, I'm going to call it port blue, or maybe we'll just name it something else, right? Application is basically, let's say we call it our pod, my pod, right? So the app is called my pod, right? The spec, okay, we are going to use containers, name pod yellow, image davidtio tsnginx 0.1 env, name background color value yellow. Okay, yeah, the rest is actually more or less. Oh yeah, here we need to change as well, because now the label is my pod. So I'm going to say, okay, point to the my pod instead, right? So now we have two pod, which is pod yellow and pod blue. Both of them will be called my pod, right? And our services will be able to somehow pick up both of this. Let's see how cool this is. So I'm going to apply. Right, almost everything is not changed. So the only thing is like pod yellow is created, service blue is reconfigured, the ingress is unchanged. Alright, let's start our browser again. Right, as you can see now, we have pod yellow here, right? So if you refresh, right, yeah, so even though we are pointing to the same one, both container can be accessed from the same browser. Cool. Okay, so that's mainly what it is. So okay, yeah, but let's continue a little bit more. So this will be the last one, promise, right? So the thing is, sometimes this behavior might not be very desirable. Sometimes you just want them to actually like stick to the same one. So if I manage to go to the port yellow, I want to stay in port yellow, especially once the application is getting more complicated and you probably have some state. So you want to actually make sure that when you log into one of the port, then it'll just keep communicating with the same port, right? So in order to do this, we actually need to actually update the services to actually tell them, hey, we want it to be sticky. Right, so now let's do this a little bit. So I'm going to go to the blue HTTP. Right, so the services, where is my services? Okay, this is the services. Now inside the services, what I'll do is I'll put the annotations. Traffic, Ingress Kubernetes.io service sticky cookie true. Right, traffic Ingress Kubernetes. Okay, the subsequent one is actually optional. Cookie name, my pod. Right, so the second line is actually optional. So I just think that for troubleshooting purposes, usually it is quite useful, so I'll just include it in. Right, so now we can apply the same one, blue http.yaml. Traffic, oh, okay, sorry, I made a wrong part. So this one is belongs to annotation, not metadata. Okay, now we have it. Yeah, so now no matter how many times I actually do this, right, it remains the same, so there is nothing there, right? So it is always blue. Okay, now let me close this first. I'm going to do one more thing. Right, so I can do a curl. Okay, just now remember I do that, so I can actually do a curl minus I blue dot rpi01 dot transcend dot local. Right, you can see now we have a cookies. There is this my pod cookies that we generated. Yeah, so that's how they actually point to the same one all the time. So when we keep running it, then it'll just keep doing blue 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 and all that. All right, okay, so I'm going to close this. Okay, now since it's always blue, right, what happens if, let's say, okay, so let's do this again. I'll move my incognito window back in. So have blue, right, so now it's yellow container, right, k get pod minus n blue. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to kill the yellow container, yellow pod, k delete pod yellow blue. Right, I'm going to delete the yellow container. So once it's deleted, we'll try to refresh again. Yep, now with the pod yellow deleted, as you can see, right, now we only have the blue container, right? So I think that's all for the session today. I hope everybody learned something from this session. I'll see you guys again on the next session. Bye bye all.